Ah, yes, the American Constitutional Republic, affairs of state in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people like you. This is 3D Politics with creator and editor of Sooner Politics, expert on Oklahoma state government, a professional advocate for those needing mental health care, state committeeman for Tulsa County GOP. Please welcome David Vann. And also, founder and scholar at Constitutional Grounds, political leader, educational speaker, former state of Oklahoma elector for the United States Electoral College. Please welcome David Oldham. And of course, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, your fine host, your verbal Viking, Tommy McKay, your host here on 3D Politics every Monday night at 7 p.m.-ish. And here we go on the road tonight, an exciting show. Former state representative and current candidate for Oklahoma GOP Chairman John Bennett is here tonight to talk about why he's running for the OKGOP chair. Also, we're going to bring in the Bad Bill Hall of Shame nominees. We're going to talk about the COVID collapse and how the numbers are looking quite good. The Broken Arrow City Council passes on passing a mask mandate. Lori Gracie Oldham is going to show up about 7:50 to talk about how the Chamber of Commerce has attacked her for her position. And, of course, we're going to talk again at the end of the show about a patriotic celebration this Friday at PJ's Bar and Grill. With a guest there as well. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again, 3D Politics. Tommy McKay, your fine host. Van Oldham, how you guys doing?
Awesome. Excited about tonight's show.
All right, we got a lot to bring in. John Bennett is getting ready to come on the show. I'm going to bring him on in now. There is a lot of excitement around what's going on. There we go. We're beaming him in. Oh, wow. Nice job. Nice job. John Bennett, welcome to the show. It's nice to meet you for the first time, except for when we met just a second ago, right before. See how well I cover? But John Bennett, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you, Patriots, and what you're doing. So thanks for having me on the show tonight.
So let's jump right in. Tell us a tiny bit about yourself and then how it is that you are running for GOP chairman.
Well, I guess just the short version of it, I spent a majority of my life in the Marines, served in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, served 14 years on active duty, 7 years in the reserves. I spent 8 years in Oklahoma House of Representatives fighting that battle. And now I'm a pastor. I'm pastoring at a church, and I do some other work as well. But I got pulled into this. I was asked numerous times from different people from all over different spectrums of the Republican Party to run for the state party chair. And I said, no, I don't think so. And a couple of these guys I thought were my friends. And I asked them, I said, I thought you guys were my friends. Why would you ask me to do such a thing?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we need a fighter. We need somebody now. And I turned them down many times. And after prayer and thinking about it, given the current environment, I decided, yeah, I'm going to do it. Somebody's got to stand up and fight, and that might as well be me.
That's great to hear. The first guy who says, I don't want to be it is the guy we want. The last guy we want is, I want to be it. So that's an impressive resume. That is some stand-up stuff right there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've had a calling to serve my whole life, and that's what I want to continue to do.
Yeah, that's some excellent stuff. Van, question.
Well, yeah, John, I heard Trump and some of his key advisors today put a quash on any idea that Trump's going to go build his own parties, leaving the GOP, taking his ball and running home. I don't think so. I think at the other side, we're probably cleaning out the fake Republicans. What do you say to this?
Yeah, so I can understand everyone wanting to have a third party. They're so disillusioned and upset. It's primarily with the Communist Democrat Party, but also our own Republican Party, where they have failed to stand on the wall. They have failed. The Republican folks that we have in office have shown us their true colors. Some of them have. They've shown us their true colors in this whole ordeal. So I can understand them wanting to have another party because they're just fed up with the Republican Party. However, I think Trump probably saw that he would really weaken patriots from being able to get in offices if he started a third party. So he has said that today, he said that he's not planning on doing that. He wants to shore up the Republican Party. And I got to say, I agree with him. We need to clean our own house out and take a stand.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Somebody's got a little bit of feedback going. I don't know if that's coming through speaker or something. I sound good, and then I sound good again somehow on the echo. Yeah,
Oldham, you got something for him?
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious as to what ultimately drove you to want to run. Is there a particular issue or something that that brings you to the race for the OKGOP chair?
Well, again, originally I didn't want to, and I'm still not sure this is something I want to get into. However, like I said before, I spent most of my life in service, and I've always said, well, someone should do something about that. I just always felt convicted. Well, then why don't you do it? So that's what I'm going to do. I feel uniquely qualified. I've been tested and prepared my entire life for these types of situations. I'm served in combat in the Marine Corps. I've led and managed people and things, and I've always been a fighter, and I stand on my principles. And in this case, I stand on the Republican Party principles and my own personal biblical principles, and I'm not going to back down from that. And I think right now, our party needs somebody that's principally sound, that's not afraid to fight. Because at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't plan to go to any further office. I don't care to. But I need to fight now because my future, your future, our children's future depends on a patriot party standing up today. And that just happens to be the Republican Party.
Yeah.
You know, your guys are listening to John Bennett, and I got a question. You brought up backing down, which kind of reminds me of Senator John Langford. I'm thinking from a foxhole analogy, if you're in the battle and you've got a guy like James Langford in the foxhole with you, he puts his foot down and he says he's going to object to these electors, and then a pop bang goes off and he's like, oh, you know what, I'm going to back down. I mean, whether you agree or disagree with challenging the electors, what kind of man is it that puts his foot down about going to challenge constitutional issues and then changes his mind in the middle of the battle due to a pop bang going off in the hall? What's your angle on that one from a military standpoint?
We've got a saying in the Marine Corps, plan the dive and dive the plan. You don't alter off of that because you think, well, this may not be a good idea or whatever it might be. You do what you say you're going to do and how you plan to do it. I don't know Jim Langford very well at all. I've met him a few times, so I can't really talk about his character, what might be going on in his mind, but I will say this. If I was in his shoes, I would have stayed true to what I said I was going to do. Right or wrong or indifferent, I would have kept charging in the same direction, because at the end of the day, whomever is there, represent the people, and the people overwhelmingly made it obvious what they wanted him to do and what he said he was going to do. And that is what he should have done.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. I wasn't asking you to bash the man. What I was talking about is in the military, like you said, and I'd never heard that before. You plan the dive and dive the plan. I'd never heard that before. And I didn't feel like Langford was able to justify either why he was going to challenge the electoral vote in the first place or why he changed his mind because there was opposition to it. Or I don't see any connection between the crowd that invaded the Capitol and Langford's vote one way or the other. I don't know why he changed his mind based on the violence.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of decisions made by all across the board at the Capitol that day. However, in my personal opinion, I thought they were premature. They didn't have all the facts. A lot of them sounded like they were basing their change of mind or change of heart. And I'm not just talking about Jim Langford here. I'm talking about all of them that changed their minds at the last minute. They were basing what it sounded like off of emotion. And you can't do that. If you're basing your decisions based off of principle, you don't change because of emotion.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I appreciate your comments on that. You guys got something else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to say, you know, John was one of the charter members of a group that formed a few years ago called the Platform Caucus. And, you know, some of those guys, you know, I talked to them for years, talked to them before they ran for office. I didn't know John as well, but some of those guys that I knew personally didn't prove to be reliable in the foxhole when the artillery was coming in, you know? But John was faithful. Not only that, he became the spokesman. He became that prophetic voice on the back row of the chamber. And even when it got tough, I remember John calling me one time. It was getting really down to brass tacks, and John and I just prayed. And John didn't know me that well, but he knew he needed somebody in his corner as well. And so I've committed myself to being in John's corner. You know, when we've got a job to do, we got to secure a party that stays true to our principles. We're going to have a video about that here in a little bit.
Oldham, what do you think?
Well, I think it's great. You know, I'm always talking about the Constitution, and what I'm hoping is that we'll get somebody who will actually work to promote constitutional principles within the party. Is that going to be a plank of yours as you run?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many legislators out there that they just say, well, I don't know where I stand on this. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. Well, the Constitution wasn't written for someone that has a doctorate degree. It was written for people like me. Well, you're probably a lot smarter than I am. It was written for other people.
We've clearly never met, John.
But I will say this, and the short answer is yes, 100%. I mean, that thing has stood the test of time, and it was divinely put together. There's no doubt in my mind. But that Constitution, America as a whole, we have a moral standard. And U.S. Code identifies 4 primary sources of organic law for the United States. And the Declaration of Independence, it was the first one that obviously, as you guys know, was our birth certificate. That's the ideal of who we are. And it lays the foundation for the principles which undergird our laws and government. And the weight of the ideal that all human beings are created equal in the eyes of God, which is the creator of all things. That kind of ideal is what crushed and ended slavery in America. I mean, we adhere to the ideal. And America continues to be the most prosperous, generous, and long-standing constitutional republic in the history of the world. Not a democracy, like a lot of our legislators try to say. Our founders hated the idea of a democracy. And the Declaration identifies the law of nature and nature's God as the foundation for our constitutional republic. And it is America's moral standard for our law and government. And that is the law of nature and nature's God, which is Jesus Christ. We've gotten so far away from that, which all of our unalienable rights is enshrined and protected by the Constitution.
So that is awesome.
Get back to that.
To follow up on that, we have a city council in Jenks, and others have done the same thing. Tulsa and Oklahoma City have passed mask mandates. And the city of Jenks is about to try to renew theirs on Wednesday. What would be your advice to the citizens of Jenks as they approach all of this, whether somebody's for or against? What should be how we as we approach this?
So we, the people, we are the government in America, whether it's at the local level all the way to the highest levels. We agree to let others govern us via a social compact so long as they govern justly according to the moral standard. So those that are pushing for the mask mandate, the government is saying you have to do this, you have to do this, that is overstepping their bounds. And we as a people, we have the right and the obligation and authority to go in there. They should flood that city council meeting and say, no, we're not standing for this. One, it's never been proven that the masks even work. It's just a false sense of security. I refuse to wear one. However, I would never disagree with anybody, individual person, or even private business that says, well, I would rather you wear a mask. Okay, fine. You have that right to do. You can choose to wear it yourself if you want to. If you own your private business and you want people to wear one in, fine. No problem with that at all. The line is drawn whenever the government, local all the way to the federal, says you have to wear this mask. So if I was a citizen, I'd tell them they need to go in there and exercise their rights, go in there and say, no, we're not standing for this. And they need to make sure they hold them accountable. If they continue to pass things like this, get rid of all.
So you are listening to former state representative and current candidate for OKGOP chairman, the Oklahoma GOP chairman, John Bennett, running for that office, and I appreciate him doing so. We're going to run a video now that Van has set up. Let's see what you got, Van. Can you share that for us?
All right. Here's John from the back row of the Oklahoma House of Representatives.
Who went and asked? Let me answer that for you. It's a rhetorical question. Nobody. Because if you did, you wouldn't be for this bill. And neither were the voters in 1992 when they passed State Question 640. 1990, we went through the same exact situation. People demanded money. Give me more money right now. I demand it. We didn't ask the taxpayers. We said, oh gosh, I don't want you to be mad at me or vote me out next election cycle. I'm just going to stick it to the taxpayers again. That's what you're doing here. Vote yes tonight. That's exactly what you're doing. Because you know why? The voters in 1992, when they stuck it to them in 1990 by a simple majority, by a Democrat-controlled legislature, they went and said, we're going to do an initiative petition and we're going to stop this. And it has worked just like they envisioned it to work. And that is to stop this body from taxing them into oblivion.
That's a little
Nice.
bit of
There it is
John.
on. Van wants you to comment that, but I got to say, thank you, Christian Bengal, who's watching tonight along with some other people. And he says, Semper Fi to John Bennett. Thank you for your service. And thank you, Christian Bengal, for watching. But respond to that video. Van wanted you to respond to that.
Yeah, John.
So the Democrats and the Republican-controlled majority was pushing for another tax increase. Why? Because the revenue was short, and all the state agencies were saying, "Give me more money, give me more money." And if you don't, we're going to extort it from you by cutting all the vulnerable areas in our government, and that's exactly what they did. So the Republicans put forth one of the largest tax increases in Oklahoma history. Really, and when they did that, they're basically telling the people of Oklahoma, we don't care about you. And they were trying to raise the taxes. They were trying to do later. Someone had filed a bill to do away with the people with that bill that prevented the legislature from raising taxes by simple majority. I mean, it was unheard of. And somebody had to say it. Everyone was saying, well, we got to do it. We got to fund core services. There's plenty of money in core services. And then they said, well, we don't know. Okay, well, fine, do an audit first. Well, we got to just raise taxes.
Oh, that's logic. That's logic. I hear an echo. I'm sorry to interrupt, but somebody's got me coming back through the sound system somehow. But no, that's audacious logic in the face of bureaucracy. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to vote for you on. That's what we want more of.
Well, John, I wanted to say, and I don't want to name names right now, but I think you told me one time a little thing of that actually somebody very high up in the Republican Party organization you ran into at the Capitol and was going to see the speaker and say, please raise taxes. Did you not feel a little bit abandoned by not only your party leadership, but your legislative caucus leadership? It was like, my goodness, where are the Republicans when it comes down to the actual fight?
Yeah, absolutely. They were given into the loudest voice, which was the minority, saying raise taxes. We don't care if you raise taxes as long as you give us the money. But when I met that individual in the hallway, I remember it very distinctly. I said, when I was talking to that person, they were saying, well, what about, why don't we raise taxes? I mean, we probably need to move into the 21st century. I'm like, Am I in the twilight zone right now? Because I don't know about you, but the Republican platform I read and ran on said we weren't going to raise taxes. That's ridiculous. There's more than enough taxes now. And if they could, and I told that person, if you can prove to me after a deep, not only an annual or receipt audit, but an actual forensic audit, that we in fact don't have enough tax money to sustain any agency, a core service of government at a decent level, I said, then I would consider it. I said, but until then, I don't want to even talk about it. Right. I promised my constituents I wouldn't raise their taxes, and I never did. I never voted for it. As a matter of fact, I got punched in the mouth a lot for fighting against it. But that's why I went up there.
Semper Fi means always faithful, and I think you took that seriously in your legislative work, and I just want to commend you for it publicly tonight.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it is going to take good men like you who aren't really looking for the fight, but see that it needs to be handled. You step up like a real man. I know that on the financial issue, I'm usually arguing with the public schools in Oklahoma alone. My most recent numbers from a couple of years ago, $2.5 billion every 300 some odd days for education in Oklahoma alone. And still they whine about how the legislature doesn't pay teachers enough. When the legislatures don't write checks to teachers, that's right. The districts. The legislature has done nothing but protect teachers by passing minimums and maximums and all sorts of laws to protect the teachers. The districts continue to screw the teachers. But again, back to this money issue. It's like $2.5 billion in Oklahoma alone. And Deborah Gist and Joy Hoffmeister say they can't keep the lights on and the doors open. Is ridiculous. We have a federal government, what is it, $19 trillion every 300 some odd days, and we got to live on a fortnight. We got a continuing resolution for 14 days when you guys are getting $19 trillion every 300 days. It's like, and I tell my 13-year-old, 12-year-old, I'm like, oh no, they can't keep the government open for more than a fortnight.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And I will tell you guys this, and all your listeners out there, and I hope if they hear anything I say tonight, they hear this. It's not unintentional. They're doing this. And my sister's a teacher. Right. My mother was a teacher. Several family members. I love the teachers. The problem here, though, is the unions. And the unions are part of the communist agenda. As a matter of fact, the 45 communist goals to destroy America, which, by the way, was put in official record in the United States Congress in 1963. On that list, they say that they need to get control of the teacher unions, which they have. The OEA, NEA, and all of those teacher unions, and they push the same communist agenda that we're seeing coming out of the new administration today. They are doing it because they have control and leverage by controlling those schools, and they do that through the unions. And kids don't even know about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights anymore.
Thank you, public schools. Van, you've got a question.
Yeah, John, let's just move a little bit more to organizational structure. Now, effectively running the Republican Party in Oklahoma means getting all the factions to work together. That includes our DC delegation, which we're proud to have, solidly Republican again now. That includes our state legislature. That includes the grassroots and a number of other factors. My understanding is you've got some personal relationships with some in our DC delegation, as well as, as much as you had to fight on the floor like that, you didn't pull any punches. When I talk to the House leadership, they've got nothing but respect for you on a very personal level. Could you talk about these relationships and what you hope to do with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of great people. Even some of the ones that's made some bad decisions, they're not bad people. They're good people, and they really believe they're doing the right thing. It's just unfortunate they get a lot of bad information sometimes, or their minority constituency is louder than the majority of their constituency, and they think that minority represents the majority, so they push for these things that they shouldn't be. So I've gone to them before, not only just on the House floor, but in private settings, and said, hey guys, let's consider all these things. This is not good. We need to stick to the platform. We need to do what's right. And based off of that, I think I've garnered some respect with them. I still respect them even if they disagree with me. But at least we can sit down and talk about it. And I think that's something that I can bring to the table. I've got relationships with some of the federal delegation. I talk to them frequently and tell them what I'm thinking and ask them, you know, that they consider what I'm sending into them, facts that I send to them. And they do, they typically do. So I've also had a lot of relationships with the grassroots folks, the conservative folks, even some of your middle of the line folks. We may not agree, but we can sit down and discuss it. At the end of the day, we may leave and say, hey, I don't like what you got to say, but let's meet back next time and talk about this.
You know, John, sometimes these things you were talking about, the people that are not bad people, they're trying to do the right thing. They make the best decision they can. And sometimes things are counterintuitive. It's easy for the people that don't understand economics or even just simple understandings. If you want more tax revenue, raise taxes, right? No, the funny thing is lower tax revenue or lower tax rates, you actually raise more tax revenue. And that's the kind of thing that's counterintuitive. Well, I didn't really know it from factual till I saw the Reagan years when that's what he did. He lowered the tax rate and literally raised revenue. So I was able to tell my children, no, you raise more tax revenue by lowering rates. It's totally counterintuitive. And people who are trying to do the right thing will do the wrong thing intuitively. Van, what do you got?
Well, I just want to say Sam Walton proved that in his pricing structure. He dropped his margin of profit and he made up for it on volume. And who's the largest retailer in the world? You know,
the government.
Speaks for itself.
And if a retailer ever wants to raise revenue, they throw a sale.
Yeah.
There you go.
Prices all of a sudden.
Say, we are still listening, and it's great for John Bennett to join us tonight. We've got just a couple of minutes before we get to the hard break, and you know how dedicated I am.
Yeah. Hey, well, John, I'm hearing Darren Gantz is running for Tulsa County Chair. Do you know Darren? Hey, can you give us a word on him?
Yes, I know, and I've known Darren Gantz for quite some time. Well, he's a good, honorable man, a principled man. He's very smart. He's really good with numbers and just a good people person. I really like Darren, and I can't vote for him up there, but if I could, I would vote for him. I certainly support him because he's got the right intentions in his heart, and he's a principled man, and I think he'll do a fantastic job up there.
Do you know anybody else running for any county or state offices that you want to give us your sense of them?
No, I haven't really been tracking them, but that's part of what I want to do when I get into the chairmanship is we have to fence off Oklahoma, for lack of better words, and we've got to put patriots in from the city councils all the way up to the federal seats. And we've got to strengthen Oklahoma, get patriots in there that's going to do the right thing.
Boy, you are a breath of fresh air, John Bennett. Where can we see more of you and find out about you and what you're doing?
I'm out on Facebook, which I don't really care for, but I didn't have a choice.
We got to do what we do. That's where the fight is, John.
Bennett for chairman, Oklahoma chairman is my Facebook page. I would encourage everyone to go out there and check that out. And they can send me messages. My phone number's out there. They can call me if they got any questions.
Excellent.
That is excellent. And we are coming right up on the hard break as we get out of here. I got to say, John Bennett, former state representative and current candidate for Oklahoma GOP chairman. He's just the kind of guy you want because he doesn't want the job. So we've got to encourage him to get out there. And listen, John, I had no idea your resume was as impressive as it was until you told us about all the stuff you're doing, really literally out there fighting for our rights. I appreciate that, and you can count on me to stand behind your efforts. Tell us once again where to find you.
You can find me out on Facebook, Bennett for Oklahoma GOP chairman.
Excellent, John Bennett. Let's have you back again, I hope. Will you come back and see us?
Absolutely.
Very good. John Bennett, we're going to send him away. Thank you once again for coming out. Thanks, John.
Thank you. God bless you.
And taking us out with a little more Bennett.
I'm telling you, this is a huge mistake. If you vote yes on this bill, you're telling your constituents, yep, I'm going to tax you to death. I'm going to tax you to death because it's easier for me to get more money and spend it where people want it than it is for me to do the right thing as your legislator and cut waste. Vote no on this bill.
Mr. Speaker, members, I will officially say I just took my first whooping in the House of Representatives. I mean, you guys have beat me to death and called me everything under the sun about wanting to raise taxes.
That's right.
And overturn the will of the people.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Once again, 3D politics.